Welcome to Time to Teach with Tammy, the podcast that gives tips, advice, and suggestions to teachers by a real teacher. So sit back and enjoy. And oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe. We're back. Welcome to episode 48, entitled All About Student-Led Conferences. So I don't think I've ever done an episode on that topic. Perhaps I've mentioned student-led conferences in the past, but certainly have never taken a deep dive into that topic. And we actually just finished our own student-led conferences, which is why this topic is at the forefront of my mind. So I thought I would love to do an episode on that. So yeah, we will be talking about that today on today's episode. But before we get started, let's begin with our wins and fails segment. Okay, so win is tied into the topic. We just did our student-led conferences, and if you are at a school where you guys do student-led conferences, I think you can probably share that same relief feeling and just like, oh, it's great to have this done. And not just to have it done, but it is something that takes a lot of work goes into it. Just like prepping the classroom, making sure that looks nice, making sure kids know what you need to do, and then just really wanting it to be such a special day, because it always is. In my experience, student-led conferences has always been such a special day for the students and parents. So I think part of it is the anticipation of, oh, I hope everything goes well. I want everyone to enjoy it. And then once you do the student-led conferences, then you feel like, oh, that's just so nice that everything that you worked towards went off well when it does, and you just kind of feel a little bit relieved, like almost like you can relax a little bit, just because it is such a big event. And it's nice. It just feels really good to have something that you work towards and have it be successful. And I really felt like our student-led conferences were so successful this year. I mean, the parents were so engaged. It was just so very nice, just wonderful. So that was my big win for the week. And for my fail, I don't really have any major fails, which I suppose is good. I have something that I suppose could be considered. I don't know. But our new bimester kind of started in the halfway point of last week, but we in my grade level had kind of decided that, obviously because we were having student-led conferences on a Thursday, we weren't really going to begin the new bimester until this week. And I had hoped, though, to kind of get a head start on the math from this bimester, just because I know that this bimester, there's a lot of calmer concepts in the math, which is a nice way to end the bimester, but it's also it's a difficult bimester, not in terms of academics, but in terms of it's the last bimester of the year. We know how, if you've been teaching for a while, you know how the end of the school year is. It's kids start feeling that summer itch. I think we teachers start feeling that summer itch, and it just gets, and then where I am geographically speaking, it's very warm. So it just makes, I don't know, everyone is so drained. It's just so hard to keep their attention. So bimester 5 is a difficult bimester. So I had hoped to kind of get a head start, even though I know in math we have some easier concepts. I feel really good about it. It's kind of a nice bimester in that sense. But I was just thinking, you know what, I'll get a head start. And then, just to kind of feel like for those days when things maybe not are going so super well, I can feel like, well, at least I had that head start. But the reality of getting ready for student-leds and everything kind of really prevented that from happening. So I didn't get the head start that I had hoped for. But again, it's not really a major fail, because really, if I hadn't decided to try for the head start, I never would have tackled any of that last week anyway. So it's not a major fail in the world of fails, but it just was, just something that I had planned or hoped for that didn't quite happen. So, I guess that's all to say that last week was pretty successful, I think. A lot of good stuff going on, and I'll throw something else in. I guess this doesn't really go into the wins and fails. I guess it's kind of a win. I might have mentioned on one of the episodes, I can't even remember. I batched these episodes, so sometimes I'm not sure if I mentioned something or if I thought I mentioned something. It's so hard to keep track of my life. But I've been practicing for the last couple of weeks for a quote-unquote surprise teacher dance. I don't think it's that much of a surprise. The kids kind of, since we've been, well, not we, but the teacher in charge of it has been doing this for the last several years. I think 4 years. Is this her 4th year doing it? I'm not sure. They kind of come to expect that there is a teacher dance for the talent show. And I've signed up this year because I always love the teacher dances are just spectacular. The teacher who puts it on, I just always feel like it's just such, I don't know, I watch it at the talent show because it comes at the end. The kids give their talent show on the day of Children's Day, which in Mexico, Children's Day is a holiday or a day that's recognized, just like Mother's Day, Father's Day, there's Children's Day. I don't know. It surprised me when I came down here, but Children's Day is a day. So on that day, all we do are just fun activities. So we open the day with a talent show, and it runs about an hour and a half, and the last part is the teacher dance. And I've always watched it and just really felt so honored to be a part of this community, and just that the dance has always been amazing in my opinion. And this year I really wanted to be part of it because I've watched it before and thought, I really should have participated in that. But also the teacher who's in charge of that, this is her last year. She's going back to the States. So I thought, gee, I better get in on this because this will be my last opportunity. I don't know if anyone else is going to take this up next year. But she's done such an amazing job at choreographing and just putting it all together and having the vision for it, which I think takes a certain kind of skill and talent. So this was kind of my last opportunity. So I'm really excited. I've been practicing for that. And I'm excited because this Friday, the day that I'm actually recording on a Sunday, which is not my typical recording day. I don't really have a typical recording day, but it's usually before Wednesday, typically a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And I did not record at all last week because I have several batched episodes. But today I just thought, you know what, I don't want to break out of that. Because it feels good. It just feels good to have batched episodes. Anyway, so yeah, that's something else that I'm doing. But I feel like I need to move on with today's episode because it's already 9.5 minutes in and we haven't started. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. All about student-led conferences. And I honestly don't know if I'm going to have to make this into 2 episodes. I'm not certain at this point. I did do a student segment this time, but it is a pretty long student segment, so I have some editing to do. I need to go through that with a fine tooth comb, um, just because I want to make sure we get, you know, we get enough of what we need. And students sometimes have a tendency of going in different directions. And I know there were a few times when the students were recording, I had little incidents I needed to work out. So they kind of stayed with the microphone, and I'm like, oh, I need to go back and see what all was recorded. Those were just a few incidents. Most of the time I was sitting there with them. And I was able to witness the kind of like going on, and I try to direct them as much as I can, but also try not to interfere too much, because I do like, the student segments for me are just the fun of hearing the kids and from their perspective. And I hope you get that out of it too. But I think for me, the biggest thing is honoring my students. So of course, if you feel like it drags on or you don't want to hear that, you are welcome to skip that. But for me, I like to honor my students and give them some voice. It's more about them than anything else. So I'm going to stick to that. And of course, edit what needs to be edited, but I can almost guarantee that there might be a little bit of kind of going on and on in there, but fair warning, you can skip that part if you feel the need. But I love the student segment so much. So yeah, student-led conferences. If you're not at a school that does student-led conferences, or if it's just something that you don't do, I highly advise that you consider incorporating that into your school year, because it is, for me, a very magical day, and I think for the students as well, because it's a day that they actually get to take charge and they get to present to their parents, and really show off what they know and their work, and it's just such a beautiful day. So student-led conferences, what is that? It's, instead of having a parent-teacher conference, it's a day that the parents come in with their child. At least at my school in grade level, this is how it looks, and students will show them a little bit of their learning. So let me explain exactly the way that I have this laid out. So my students are really young, and they get very nervous, which I think probably students at any age. I don't think that's unique to my students, but they get a little bit nervous thinking about this big day. And so what we do is we create a checklist for them, and this checklist really walks them through everything that they are going to be sharing with their parents. So I'm going to discuss with you what's on the checklist and use that as an opportunity to discuss that kind of work. So the biggest thing that I think is very special and some important to keep in mind to the student-led conferences is you really want to try to keep the work to authentic work. So it's not just something, we have these student-led conferences, let's produce this inauthentic thing that you're going to present to mom and dad. Why do I not believe in that? Because it's not authentic, and we're really trying to give parents an idea of where they are. Now, we want them to do their best work, but we want to keep it authentic. So one of the first things that they do is they're sharing their Just Right book with them. So their Just Right book is authentic because it is based on their level of reading. So wherever that student is that right then in the school year. So a lot of my students right now are at C's and D's. They have several books in their book box, and they chose the one that they wanted to share with their parents. So I gave them that choice. I'm not someone who feels like I should be dictating what they're reading. It's just choices within those choices within their reading level and already books that they've been reading in their book box. Next week we're actually changing, because now it's been a couple of weeks with those same books. So and the reason why I have them do Just Right is because they choose leveled books that go into their book box that they read every day, and then they also have a couple of other books that they've chosen from the classroom library that probably is not a just right book, but I want to give them the opportunity to choose books that, they can at least engage in the pictures. It's something that they really want to read or engage with, even if it's not a book they can actually read the words. So I always let them choose two from our classroom library, and then about 4 or 5 from the leveled uh, book baskets. And anyway, that's why they chose one of their just right books, and that's the first thing they do with mom and dad when they come in. And again, there is a checklist, and on my checklist there's a box just like you would imagine on a checklist, and then it says share your just right book with mom and dad, and there's a picture of a book box. So as I'm teaching them the checklist, and we actually do a run through of how to do this, I make a big deal of them to pay attention to the pictures, because many of them will only be able to read some words in the actual checklist. So they're going to be attaching most of the meaning, all of the meaning really, in the actual image. So I just kind of tell them, pay attention to the image. There's a picture of the book box. When you see that, that means you're sharing your just right book. So that's the first thing they do. So authentic is what they're authentically reading at this time of year. The next item on the checklist is their published piece. So we're at the end of our bimester. We've completed it now by the time I'm recording. So they've been working on persuasive writing this whole unit. So what they did was they've spent a couple of weeks on actually revising, editing, and then publishing just one of their pieces in the persuasive writing unit. So those first pieces they're kind of working through the genre of persuasive writing and really strengthening it, so by the end they're better and stronger persuasive writers. So they're choosing something more towards the end that they feel really good about, and they knew that piece that they decided they were going to spend a little more time on, their audience was going to be their mom and dad. That's who they were going to be sharing that piece with, that published piece, on the day of student led. So again, authentic. They didn't create something entirely different to put on a show. It was so authentic to the work that we'd been doing. And in every bimester we are we have some authentic audience. Excited for this bimester. I keep saying next one, this new one that we're in, because our audience will be kinder coming in to hear animal books. But so again, very authentic. And then the third literacy piece that they share is their how-to book that they published on Google Slides. So it's nice because it incorporates technology. So we have 5 iPads in the classroom. Actually, we're getting a 6th one for next year, which is nice. So I keep the iPads in a basket in the back, and then when they're ready for that piece of their presentation, they just go to the back, they get the iPad, bring it back to their desk with mom and dad, and read it. And it's nice because their parents actually see, oh my goodness, they know that their child goes to technology and is doing things, but I think it's different to actually get to see a piece that they typed up and put together and use technology, because the kids now are mostly 6, a few of them are 7, and it's just very impressive because they haven't seen that with them. So it's just really, really, really nice. And then after that, let's see, the next step is math. So they share their math journal with their parents. They have pre-chosen 2 pages. And the idea with this is not just, look at my math journal. It's actually to show, because we do a lot of work in our math journals. It's one of the ways that we open up Math Workshop, but they illustrate or sketch out the math problems, and they usually are attaching number bonds or whatever it is that we're working on. Fact families. We tie this in to the problems that are already in the math journal. So they actually explain kind of the process of their thinking and how they worked out the math problem. So it's neat for the parents to see, because I don't think they're always, even though I share pictures with them, I don't know that they know how in depth our processing is in math workshops. So they share that, and then they teach them a game. In the past, I've always had them teach the math bump, but this year I taught a new game, and I had them teach this new game. So it's get to 20, and each partner has a set of double 10 frames, and then you each have 20 math cubes, one color. So let's say I have 20 green math cubes, my partner has 20 red cubes, and we have a die, and you roll your die and you set down that many math cubes on your double 10 frame. And the objective is you want to get to 20 or as close to 20 without going over, because if you go over, you lose. And then the other thing is you can only roll 5 times. You don't have to roll all 5. You can decide to stop prior to that. It's up to you, but you cannot roll more than 5 times. And we did this when we started to really explore what 20 looks like. It was a nice visual. And then it was just kind of fun because they want to try to get to 20. So they had to kind of strategize a little bit about, do I want to take that 5th roll or not? Do I want to stop here? Because if you go over, then you lose. So it was fun because the parents do know we do a lot of manipulatives and math games, so I wanted them to experience what that looks like and feels like in the math workshop. So they actually play that game with their child, and that they just always have so much fun with the math games. So that was good. And then the last little piece for us is that they take them out to the garden, because part of this last unit was our garden unit, and it's titled how I can't remember, how the earth cares for me and how I care for the earth. The whole idea with this unit is really connecting with the earth and getting students to value life, understanding that we really need to take care of our earth because, it's our home and we get our food from it. And, as such, we really have this huge responsibility to take care of it. So they take them out to the garden because within this unit, we actually grow a garden. So they share the things that we're growing in the garden. We have radishes, green beans, carrots that a couple of them are just now starting to grow. What else do we have? Kale. I think that's it. And then I think once we harvest our radishes, we'll be planting some flowers in there. But anyway, they go out there and they share that, and they talk about the process of, how did they grow the garden. And then they also talk a little bit about taking care of the earth, the importance of taking care of the earth. And then that kind of wraps up the English portion of the student leds. They come back in, and then the students set a goal. They set a reading goal and a writing goal. The reading goals are tied into things that we're working on right now. Like right now we're in our avid readers unit. So some of the things that they've learned about avid readers, avid readers read all the time. Avid readers keep a stack of books next to them. This is Lucy Culkin's reading workshop. Avid readers read everywhere. Avid readers connect with the characters. So the students have images of those, because when I first taught these on the anchor charts, there are images attached, so they already know what those images mean. So they were able to look at their goals and choose one that they honestly feel like they need to still work on, and they circled it. And then a writing goal, and it's the same kind of writing that we do for a writing checklist to make our writing easy to read. So a lot of it is like conventions. Am I using finger spaces? Am I using, I don't know, what else is on there? I can't think right now. Spelling the snap words correctly. So they kind of look at what is it that I still need to work on. And just mind you, that's one kind of a checklist. When we're working, we also have another checklist that we work on that's more unique to the genre. So like persuasive writing, am I using kind words? Am I remembering to state what the problem is? So it's more than just conventions, but for the writing goal, they set a writing goal that's based on making my writing easy to read, because that transfers into every genre. And at this point, we're closing the bimester and we're closing that unit. So we're starting a new kind of writing. So it wouldn't really make sense to set a writing goal on persuasive writing if we're just about to start a research and informational writing. So, and then their parents have a reflection sheet where they state what they think the students, what their child did really well, and then something that they're going to help their child, a way that they're going to help their child meet their goals. So if, whatever the goal the child set, the parents then will say, this is what I commit to doing at home to help my child reach those goals. And then it goes on to their Spanish portion, and I can't really speak too much about the Spanish. I think it's like they share a reading piece and a writing piece, and also set goals. But that's primarily it, and that's it for the day. And for us, all they do is the student led, and then they go home. So now that I kind of talked about that aspect, let me get into a little bit of the logistics of that. So what I do is I divide the entire school day, starting at 8 o'clock, into 50-minute segments. So 8 to 8:50, 9 to 9:50, 10 to 10:50, 11 to 11:50, and then I do this in Google. It's in Google, why can't I think of it? Sheets. And I will give the link to the parents, and they sign up for a slot. And then when it's their time to come, they just come during that 50-minute time slot. Now, I must say, they need more than 50 minutes. The thing that has kind of saved me is that there's a 10-minute overlap between each time slot. And that kind of helps, so that if a student, because some students are going to require a little more time, just depending, and I don't really try to rush them. I will, if I see they're taking an extremely long time, I might say, okay, you might want to start thinking about starting the Spanish part soon if you need to. But I didn't need to do that this year, because the rhythm felt really good, and even though they went slightly over, they were basically able to finish in an hour. So they were leaving as the new batch of students and parents were coming in. So that's really what it looks like for us. And then what we did is we just the day before student leds, I actually went through I'd already gone through the checklist and explained to the students, these are the things we'll be doing. But then the day before student leds, we actually walked through it, and they got into a partnership and they practiced it. So like, first this parent pretends to be this student pretends to be the parent. The other one actually talks and shares their work just like they will be doing on the day of student leds, and then they switched. This I feel is important, because you want to make sure, even though you explain to your kids this is what we're doing, and you want to explain it and not just show, they don't know what that looks like until they've had time to practice. So I do believe that practicing is going to be extremely, extremely important. So yeah, that's it. That is all about student-led conferences. Like I said, if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend doing it. We do it in our 4th bimester in place of a parent-teacher conference. And then of course, you want to keep your parents alert. We don't send report cards this bimester either. So I'm going to send, I think, like a little progress sheet. You still want to let them know if you have any concerns, but this is a way for them to actually see it in action. Okay, you guys, and also I kind of decided that I am going to make this a 2-part show. So I know I talked earlier in the episode about having the student segment. I think that's going to just be next week's show. So episode 49, I'm just thinking with the length, This episode is already getting a little bit long, and if I combine it with the student segment, it's going to be very long, so I'm just going to make it a part 2. So stay tuned for episode 49 so you can hear about student-led conferences from my students' point of view. Don't forget that you can reach me on Twitter. It's probably one of the best places to reach me at. My handle is at TammyJ123. Tammy is TAMIJ123. Until next time.
Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Before you go, don't forget you can catch our show notes online at www.timetoteach.libsyn. That's libsyn.com. We're also on Facebook at Time to Teach. Don't forget to check out our Facebook group, Teachers for Effective Curriculum. And if you're an educator with your own podcast show, I invite you to join our brand new Facebook group, Teachers Who Podcast. Let's grow a community where we can network, problem solve, and discuss anything and everything podcast related. I'll see you there.